Mr. Motosua, do you think you could hang out with me for a little while?
I know what Shinbo's talking about. It's just that I don't know what to do. And besides, I'm sure that she had at least one previous owner. And since she is a Persicom, it's no big surprise that her memory's gone. But when I look at Chi, I just can't think of her like that. I'm sorry, I know I'm not making any sense.
No, I understand. I do. Because I was confused about the exact same thing once. To tell you the truth, I don't talk about it much, but for a while I was married to a Persicom.
Huh?
It's that store right over there.
That store?
It was right after I opened T-Roll. I'll never forget the day I met her. The guy at the store suggested that I buy one of the newest models. And they were all pretty, but I couldn't really tell them apart. And then, there she was. Back there in the corner, marked down with a bargain price tag, under a thin layer of dust. When I asked about her, he said that she was an old model that was about to go out of production. And then, the next thing I knew, I'd already bought her and we were home. I tried to make some sense out of the manual, and somehow got her to boot up. And then she said,
Nice to meet you. And what would your name be?
Huh? I'm Ueda. Hiroyasu Ueda.
Mr. Ueda, I have input your name. Does this mean that you're my master, Mr. Ueda?
What? Well, I guess it does. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I guess you could say it was love at first sight. She was always smiling and full of energy. If something bad happened to me, she cheered me up. And when things went well, she was happy for me. She was by my side no matter what happened. Before I knew it, I'd completely fallen in love with her. Her, a Persicom. So I actually went through with it. I proposed to her. She nodded yes, with her usual happy smile.
Yeah, but can you really marry a Persicom?
Well, no, it's not possible from a legal point of view, but it was definitely a real marriage. Besides, you can give property to Persicoms, and they can also inherit your belongings.
But your family, didn't your folks care or try to talk you out of it?
No, both of them had passed away by then. The ceremony was just beautiful, perfect. We had a wedding dress made and held the service in a small restaurant. Someone even wrote an article about it, and the people in the shopping strip teased me a lot and made fun of me. But I was happy that I could be together with her, and that she would continue to smile like that. And yet, by then, the signs had already started to appear.
The signs?
She started to forget things. Little by little, all sorts of things. At the time, I thought it was just me, so I wasn't all that concerned. But then, she started to forget things from the day before, and little errors about where we kept certain things in the shop. It started getting worse and worse. And then she would forget what kind of cake a customer had ordered, just seconds before. I looked through all sorts of books, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So I took her back to the electronics store.
The hard drive is completely shot. You're gonna have to replace the whole thing if you want to fix it.
But she'll get better if I replace it, right?
Yeah, but since it's an older model, there's no way I can guarantee that the data's gonna transfer over properly.
What?
When we reboot, it might lose everything.
Yes, but she'd lose her memory then. Is that what you're telling me? But that's just too cruel.
You don't have to worry so much. The Persicom won't feel any sadness or pain whatsoever, because she'll have completely forgotten everything she learned.
I just couldn't handle her losing everything I'd shared with her. The thought was just unbearable to me. I took her to some other shops to see if anyone could help her, but it was always the same. So after that, I decided to bring her home without doing anything.
Nice to meet you. And what would your name be?
I'm Ueda. Hiroyasu Ueda.
Mr. Ueda, I have input your name. Does this mean that you're my master, Mr. Ueda?
The situation was bad enough, but her condition got even worse. She started to forget things that had happened just a few seconds before.
Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be? Nice to meet you. And what would your name be?
But even then, I still couldn't send her out to be repaired. Even if it was only a little bit, or even just once in a while. The fact that she could still remember me with that broken hard drive was something I just couldn't bring myself to let go of. But then, one rainy day after she'd been like that for a while, we went out shopping together. By that time, it was very hard for her to live even a simple everyday life. I never knew what she might do if I took my eyes off of her. I thought about her constantly, and I couldn't sleep, but there was nothing I could do. I guess I was in a daze. I'm sure she was in such a state that she didn't understand the consequences of being hit by a truck. But I somehow felt that she'd sacrificed her own life to save me. Pretty strange, huh? She was still able to do an incredible thing like that when she could barely even function.
No, it's not strange. Not in the least. I think she saved your life even though she knew what would happen.
Thanks for saying that. Immediately after the accident, I took her to the shop where I bought her. But they said that she was so torn up that they could never reboot her. Her body was shattered. They said if I wanted, they'd try to find another one of the same model, a different one that looked the same. But to me, there could never be another her. She was a Persicom, and not a living creature. For me, she had died there in the rain. I knew that there was nothing to repair. She couldn't feel or remember anything anymore. But I still remember her. I remember everything about her. Her face, her voice, her movements, the good times and the bad times. I'm pretty sure I'll never forget any of that. That's just how you feel, isn't it? Even if Chi doesn't remember what the two of you have shared, you'll always remember, won't you, Motosua? If something happened to Chi, you'd still remember her, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So it wouldn't have been all for nothing then. Even if they were able to erase it from the hard drive somehow, not as long as you still remember Motosua. That's why you need to find Chi.
Yes. Even though I don't have any idea where she could be, I'm gonna look for her.